Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Sotah Lamed Zayin. We're going to start on the bottom of Lamed Vav and Beis. 2 lines from the bottom. Gemara's been discussing that because Yosef sanctified Hashem's name in public by not sitting with Potiphar, he got an extra letter hey to his name. But Judah, because he sanctified Hashem's name, Yosef did it in private, but Judah, because he did it in public, his whole name is Hashem. And what did Judah do to sanctify Hashem's name in public? The Jewish people stood at the sea. The tribes were fighting with each other. One tribe said, one tribe said, I want to be the first to go into the sea. The other tribe said, I want to be the first to go into the sea. Tribe of Benjamin jumped in first and went down into the sea. As it states, Sham Binyamin Sa'ir Rodaim. There, Binyamin the younger ruled. Al Tikri Rodaim El Areid Yam. They went into the sea first. Ari Sarah Yehuda Rogmin Musam. The prince of Judah were stoning Benjamin. They were upset, as it states, Sarah Yehuda Ragamtam. The prince of Judah were upset with them. Therefore, Binyamin, the tzaddik, merited, his descendants became the hosts to God, as it says, as it states about Hashem, about the Beis Hamikdash, it says, that Binyamin was dwelling amongst the tribe of Benjamin, and that's why Benjamin was the place of the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not like that. It was just the opposite. Each tribe was saying, I don't want to go down first. And each one was saying, I don't want to go down first. So Nachshon ben Aminadav jumped, and he went into the sea first. As it says, Sivavuni b'chachash Ephraim, u'memirma beis Yisrael, Yehuda od raid el. So that Ephraim was surrounded with lies, the house of Israel with deceit, but Judah, he went down. He was the one who went down into the sea. And that's why about Judah it is stated in the tradition, Ushiani Elokim, God save me, Kivao Mayim Anefesh, Tavati Bivei Mitzula Ve'ein Mamad. Judah was saved when the soul came up to his neck, and that's because he went down first. Al tishtefeni shibo at mayim al tivoeni mitzula. And this is what it means when it says in Tehillim, when it states that the water should not swallow me up. That this is a reference to this phrase when the ancestors of David were the ones who jumped down first into the sea. But also at that moment, where the Jewish people were standing at the Yam Suf waiting for the sea to split. He says, so Moshe was praying. So God said to him, my beloveds are drowning. My beloveds are drowning and you're praying? It doesn't say you're praying. You're going on and on in prayer. So Amar Lafanav, Ribbona Shalom, you're praying in front of me? Amar Lafanav, Ribbona Shalom. So Moshe says, what should I do? You tell the children of people of Israel to travel. You stick up your hand and stretch out your hand. Therefore, Judah merited to be the ruler because he jumped first into the sea, as it states, the Jewish people became the people they were his ruler, his ruled people, the ones he ruled over. What's the reason Judah became holy? Because when the sea saw, he ran away. The sea ran away from Judah. That was the reason. This would go back to that half the tribes are on Mount Gerizim and half the tribes are on Mount Evel. So where was the tribe of Levi standing? So Boaz ben Yaakov says, "Yeah, Shalom Mar Levi Lamata." You can't say the tribe of Levi was below and the valley between Mount Gerizim and Mount Eval Shekfar Mar Lamala, because it lists them as being above. Because it says Moshe writes in the Torah, these are the ones who will stand to bless Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. So it says Shimon and Levi, and it can't say. Yeah, but it also says them that they were below, because it says in the book of Joshua, that shows that the Levium were below. So how do we make sense of these two contradictory verses? Rabbi Yoshaya's answer is whoever was below, whoever was able to carry the Aron and was young enough, meaning to say from the age of 30 until 50, they stood below in the valley. And everybody else was on the mountains. That's Rabbi Yoshaya's answer. Rabbi Omer, Elu ve'elu amata, Elu ve'elu amata heinom dim. That everybody was below. Hafu p'neim klapi, meaning to say that everybody was below. The Israelim and the Leviim were mata. Everybody was below. Nobody was up on top of the mountain. So it's so that everybody turned to Mount Gerizim and said a blessing, and everybody turned to Mount Eval and said a curse. So what does it mean that they stood on the mountain? That they stood on the mountain. My al, they stood on the mountain. Al b'samach, it means next to. As it states, we learned in this price, we have it in Menachos. You're supposed to put on the trays of the lechem apanim, you're supposed to put the levona zaka, the fine frankincense. But there it says that they would put the bezikim of the levona on the trays. But Rabbi Omer al b'samach, it means not on the bread, but next to the bread. Ata Omer al b'samach al mamish, does it mean on it or just next to it? Omer v'sakosa aroma, it says about the parochas that you shall cover v'sakosa aron, that the parochas should be on top of the aron. Can't be on it exactly, because the parochas we know was the curtain that divided the holy of holies from the holies. So therefore, Havi Omer al b'samach means next to. Havlu p'neim klapi har Gerizim upatchu the bracha. So then they turned their faces towards Mount Gerizim, and they started with a blessing. Tana Rabbanan, Baruch B'klal, Baruch B'prat. So how did they bless? What were the blessings that were said? So the Brisa teaches that they blessed a general blessing, and they blessed a specific blessing. This is what Rashi says. Rashi says, Kol abrachos v'akos never bahar Gerizim bahar eval. Every blessing and curse that was said in Mount Gerizim and Mount Eval, B'klal uprat. There was a blessing in general and a specific blessing. Baruch Asher Yakim es divrei Torah zos. Blessed be the ones who will uphold this Torah, and cursed be the ones who don't uphold the Torah. That's the general, and each one of those had a specific. Baruch Asher Yaseh Pesol Mesecha, or Asher Yaseh Pesol Mesecha, and then all of them. So each mitzvah had a blessing and a curse. So it's Baruch B'klal, Baruch B'prat, Ar B'klal, and Ar B'prat. Lilmod Lamed Lishmor Asos. So this teaches, and then on top of that, all of the mitzvos, they had additional covenant. That Rashi says, Kol mitzvos tu'unin kuan tu'unos arba. All of the mitzvos require these four. So there are 4 mitzvos for every mitzvah. And about each of those 4 of them, they were given over with a curse and a blessing, generally and specific. Baruch Hasher Yomadu, Ar Hasher Lo Yomadu. And then, so to Lamed Lishmor Lasos, to learn, to teach, to guard, and to do, for each one of these 4 brisos. And so therefore, we see from here, Hare Arba. So we see from here, there are 4 brisos to learn and 4 to teach. That's 8. And then for each of them, Arba, and then for each of them, Arba. So there are 4 for each mitzvah. And so therefore, Arba, Shmona. And so therefore, we see from here that the number of covenants that the children of Israel made on Mount Gerizim for every mitzvah was 4, because you have Lilmod Lami Lishmor Lasos, and another 4 for those who don't keep it. So that's 8. And then you had the general and the specific. Array Shmona. And then it was Shmona, and then Shmona, Array Sheshes. So then you have 16 mitzvos on every covenant in the Torah, 16 covenants on every mitzvah in the Torah. 4 specific, 4 general, and that was a blessing, and that was positive. And then the 4 specifically against, and 4 specifically generally against, and that's 16. And so therefore, for every mitzvah in the Torah, there were 16 brisos established at Mount Gerizim and Mount Eva, or on 37b. V'chein b'Sinai. And also, these brisos happened at Sinai. You had the same thing during the bris at Sinai. Chein b'Arvos Moav. And also, when Moshe gave to the Torah to the Jewish people at Moab, it says that Moshe stood be'Ever Yarden, Holil Moshe be'Eretz Torah Zil Slay more. There's also the acceptance in this manner. And so therefore, we get 16 covenants, 16 brisos. As it states, Elu Devrei HaBris Asher Tziva Hashem Es Moshe. That was at Mount Sinai. And we also says, and also you have to guard this bris. So we know that there are 3 brisos that were made with the Jewish people. Nimtza, and each one had the 16 brisos associated with each mitzvah. Nimtzaim arba mushmona brisos akol mitzvah. So for every mitzvah in the Torah, there's 16 times 3, which is 48 brisos associated with God, 48 covenants. Rabbi Shimon says, no, it's not like Rabbi Shimon disagrees with this approach. Rabbi Shimon says that Joshua did not make a bris with the Jewish people at Mount Gerizim and Mount Eval for all of the mitzvahs of the Torah. He only made it for what was written in that pasuk. So it's 11 curses, and not for all the mitzvahs. And so therefore, he doesn't count the 3 covenants as including Mount Gerizim and Mount Eval. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon motzi ar Gerizim and Mount Eval. Rabbi Shimon takes out Mount Gerizim and Mount Eval. Machnis or Moed b'Midbar, and he says in the Ol Moed in the wilderness. Then in that place, that's where they made the 3rd bris. Meaning, say after the Mishkan was established, well, at that point it was the 2nd. Hashem told Moshe again all the mitzvahs of the Torah, and then Moshe taught the whole Torah to them there. And so therefore, that was the place of the 3rd bris. According to the Tanna Kama, no, what happened in the Ol Moed was just a continuation of what was going on in Har Sinai. And this dispute between Rabbi Shimon, who says that the 3 brisos were at Sinai, Ol Moed, and Arvos Moed, and the Tanna Kama, who says that take out Ol Moed and include Mount Gerizim and Mount Eva with Joshua, it's bepukta dani tonight. So the same machokas that we have later on. The Dani Rabbi Shimon Omer Klolos Namru B'Sinai, who protos Ba'Ol Moed. That it says, Rabbi Shmuel says that only the general, I just had the big sluice to come back from Har Sinai. So what was taught at Sinai? So according to Rabbi Shmuel says the clothes were set at Sinai. Only the general principles were set at Sinai to Moshe, whereas the pratos, the specific mitzvahs, were said in the Ol Moed. Specific mitzvahs were said in Bamidbar, in the Ol Moed. Well, that is going to be like the Tanna Kama of the previous dispute, because he says there wasn't a separate bris at the Ol Moed, whereas Rabbi Kiva says, "Calls to pratos nemerim b'Sinai, v'nishnu b'Ol Moed, v'nishtalshu b'Arvos Moed." So Rabbi Yishmael is in agreement with Rabbi Shimon, who says that the Torah was given with all of its details at Sinai, repeated at Ol Moed, and 3rd time at the Arvos Moed. And so he was of the position that there wasn't that Rabbi Kiva would say there wasn't a covenant made at Mount Gerizim and Mount Eval. But according to both approaches, according to both opinions, there were 3 brisos, and each mitzvah in the Torah has 48 covenants associated with it. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Ish Kfar Akko, Amar Mishmar b'Shimon, Enchol mitzvah sheksuva b'Torah shel nichru aleim arba mishmona brisos shel sheish meos elef v'shloshis alafim v'chamesh meos v'chamishim. So we keep on going more and more. We want to just establish just how much we've committed to doing every mitzvah. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, the Ish Kfar Akko, says in the name of Rabbi Shimon, actually, it's not just 48 covenants, because each of the mitzvos has 48 brisos, and for each one, meaning to say of 600, it's 48 times 603,550. That was the number of the Jewish people that stood at Mount Gerizim when they were blessed and they cursed by the Leviim. And that's because every man from the Jewish people became a guarantor, not only for each mitzvah for himself to do, but he guarantees every other Jew's mitzvah as well. He's the guarantor. He's responsible for every other Jew's mitzvah. So each of us who stood at Mount Gerizim and Mount Avel had to do 48 times 603,550. And Amar Rebbe, with different Rebbe Shimon ben Yehuda, Ish Kfarako, Shamar Mishum Rebbe Shimon, Echol Mitzvah Sabator, Shalom Nichrasu Aleim, Hara Mishmona Briso Shal Sheishmos, Elva Shosh Salavim Chamishmos Chamishim. So Rebbe seems to just be repeating Rebbe Shimon. The Gemara is going to ask what's the difference? What's the difference between Rebbe and Rebbe Shimon ben Yehuda? So Amar Mishar Arva va'Arva de Arva Ikabenayel. Whether or not they were the guarantors directly, and so then it'll be each one of us at 48 times 603,550, or also were the guarantors of the guarantor. Just to guarantee is another mitzvah. So whether it's 48,000 times 603,550 times 603,550, because we're the guarantor of the guarantors. So Darish Rabbi Yehuda ben Nechemia Mikturgamanei the Rabbi Shimon Lakish Kol Parsha Kula Lo Nemru Ela Benoaf Nefes. Okay, now pulling it back says, well, this passage of what they stood in Mount Gerizim and Mount Avel was not about all the mitzvahs in Torah. It was just about the sins of sexuality, as it states. Oro Ish Asher Yaseh Pesal Nasecha. But is it really a person who worships idolatry? Is it sufficient for him to just be cursed? And that's not sufficient. It refers to somebody who has a sexual sin, and he produces a child. Then what's going to happen? So somebody who's with a woman, who's a married woman or is an incestuous relationship, the child will be a mamzer, and so the child will be rejected by the Jewish community. So therefore, the child will go amongst the idolaters. The child will feel rejected. So a mamzer is able to learn Torah. It could be a Talmud Chacham, but he'll feel rejected. And so then he'll go and study amongst the idolaters. And so therefore, whose fault is that? So the pasuk is saying, the curse to be the father and mother of this child that caused him to end up like this. Tan Rabbanan, Moshe Rabbeinu commanded the Jewish people. It says, when you come to the land that you're going to come there to inherit, you should place the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Avel. What's Moshe coming to teach us with this pasuk? If it's just to tell us just to tell us that the blessing will be on Gerizim and the curse is on Avel, it already states it already says that in the pasuk. So it's. I mean, there's another pasuk that says that we don't need two pasukim telling us the same thing. So therefore, what's Moshe coming to tell us? It's tell us that with each one of the curses of the 11 curses, that first they have to say the blessing, and afterwards they should say the curses. I might think, since the Torah tells us to place the brachos that are said before the curses, that means to say that you might think that before each one of the 11 curses we have to put a blessing before it. No, the pasuk says bracha uklala. It says in the pasuk in the singular, and then it says the klala and arivel in the singular. Bracha achas kodemes l'klala. The first blessing should come before the first curses. But not all the blessings should come before the curses. But Gemara says, and how do we know that we're supposed to compare the blessings to the curses to learn the laws of the blessings that are not explicit? And so the Gemara says we can learn also, just like the klala was said by the Leviim and also the brachas, to teach us that the klalos, just like the klalos said by the Leviim, also the bracha, just like the curse is said in a loud voice, so too the blessing is said in a loud voice. Just like the curse is said in Hebrew, also the blessings are said in Hebrew. Just like the curses were said general and each also specific. Also the blessing is said in that manner. And just like by the curses, those who are standing on Har Gerizim and those who are standing on Har Avel, after each curse, they respond amen. Also, after each blessing, each one is going to respond amen. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, but we can continue for tomorrow's daf because we have a few extra minutes now. So